Alright guys, welcome back to my garage. Today we're going to be working on the dirt. So I'm actually filming this intro after I've already done the work. So let's make sure we've got our safety beanie on and then go back in time and see how I did it. The procedure for draining and refilling your coolant is going to be the same no matter which engine option you have in your Dodge Dart. As far as coolant options, you can go with the OEM coolant that the manual recommends. The part number is MS12106. This is the OEM factory coolant. The next type you can use is Prestone AF2100. It meets or exceeds the same exact standards that the OEM coolant has. So if you want to save a couple dollars, or if you don't feel like going all the way to a dealership, you can definitely use this coolant. And lastly, if your coolant comes out and it's dirty, it's got particulates in it, you're not sure how clean your system is, you can always flush the system with distilled water. You can get this for 94 cents a gallon at Walmart. You can also use cooling system cleaner. This is a chemical you just mix in with the distilled water. And this is going to flush and clean out your coolant system before you fill it with the final coolant that you're going to use when you drive down the road. The tools to do this job are actually pretty simple. The first option is what the manual recommends. It has this special Airlift toolkit. It also requires an air compressor to run, or if you have a shop that has shop air, it needs at least 80 psi minimum. And then the other common tools you'll need are just a pair of pliers, some 5/16 vinyl tubing, at least 1 foot long. I was able to find this at Ace Hardware for like 39 cents a foot, so it's very cheap. You need a drain pan for the coolant, and then miscellaneous gloves, towels, rags to clean up messes and keep the coolant from getting into your skin because it's very toxic. The Airlift vacuum toolkit is considered a specialty tool, along with the air compressor required to run it. You definitely don't need it to be able to drain the coolant and refill it without air bubbles. This just makes it way easier and way faster. The second option uses a simpler and less expensive spill-proof funnel. Basically, this just has adapters so it can screw directly onto the coolant overflow bottle and it won't leak while you're running the car and trying to fill the system and get rid of air bubbles and bleed it. This is approved by the shop manual. It says if you don't have the Airlift tool that this is another approved method to use. And then the rest of the tools are the same: the pliers, the vinyl tubing, and the drain pan. And then a final option, if you just really do not want to spend a single dollar more than you have to, and you're okay with removing hoses and having to replace hose clamps, there is a video on YouTube where they take a regular funnel and just stick it in the radiator hose and fill the system that way. It does work, it does get the air bubbles out eventually, but it's not approved by the manual. It's not really recommended, but I thought I would at least mention it in this video. Before draining the radiator, make sure the heat is set to the hottest position and the fan is turned on. Also make sure the hoses in the engine bay are cool to the touch so you don't burn yourself and you know that the system isn't under pressure where it's going to spray out as soon as you open it. The drain for the entire cooling system is on the bottom of the radiator on the driver's side of the car. I wasn't sure how to get to the drain location, so I ended up taking off the wheel and the wheel well liner so I could get to it from the side. I realized later that you can just reach your arm down from the top in between the radiator hose and where the ECU and the battery is, and you can do everything from the top, but I left the wheel well liner off for the rest of the video just to make things easier for filming. So it is possible to reach down there and get the hose attached without taking the wheel well off. You just take your arm, you have to put it way in here and reach way down. Make sure that the hose doesn't kink since it's a very tight bend. The coolant still needs to be able to flow freely. Now that the hose is attached, you can feed it through a gap in the bottom of the under tray. It's right here in between the two layers, right in front of this bolt. You'll just have to find it. I'll try and show a couple different angles. But yeah, basically you just push the hose through, feed it through, and then you're ready to put the drain pan under the car and start draining. With the hose attached and fed into the drain pan, go ahead and reach down with your pliers and turn the drain to the left. Loosen it until coolant starts to flow out. You can open the coolant overflow bottle to try and get some extra air in and let it drain faster. The coolant's going to drain slowly for a few minutes, even with the cap off, so just give it some time and let it drain. After the coolant stops running, attach the airlift system to the coolant overflow bottle using the triangular adapter. Then you can connect the Venturi assembly. It'll tell you which component that is on the diagram that comes with the tool. Connect that to the air compressor and run a little bit of pressure through it. If you cover the end of the Venturi hose with your thumb, it runs pressure into the coolant bottle and it blows the remaining coolant out of the system. When it's done and you're just blowing bubbles in the coolant, close the drain and remove the coolant hose. Make sure all the drains are closed, and then it's time to draw a vacuum using the Airlift tool. Go ahead and hook it up to the air compressor and open the ball valve, and you should see that the needle starts to climb and it should start drawing a vacuum on the system. This is the first time I did it and I messed up. You can see after a few seconds of running, the needle just drops back down and it doesn't hold a vacuum whatsoever. So it turns out the triangle adapter that I was using was not universal and it was not seating properly. So when it tried to pull a vacuum, it was just leaking. I ended up discarding the triangle part, putting it away, and using the airlift part just as it came with no adapter. I just tightened the knurled part down and expanded the bottom part until it seated perfectly in the reservoir tank. Make sure when you're tightening, don't grab it by the gauge on top because you can damage it. I reconnected everything and it started working. It pulled a vacuum, it got into the green zone like it was supposed to, and then when I closed the valve, it held the vacuum and everything was working as it was supposed to. Now that we've verified that there are no leaks, it's time for the easy part. Get a clean bucket, pour in the coolant of your choice, get the strainer from the airlift kit, pre-fill it with coolant just so you're not sucking in air initially into the system and you're just pulling coolant. Connect the strainer to the airlift and then open the valves and watch it pull the coolant in for you and fill up the system. Now that the system is full of coolant, we can close the valves, disconnect the strainer, and remove the airlift system from the radiator overflow tank. Okay, now that the coolant tank is done and we've put the assembly back in its case where it belongs, it's time to reattach the cap and take this baby for a test drive. So let's go ahead and get you situated here. Make sure it's tight all the way. All right, now let's go for a test drive. Right after I put the wheel back on. Okay, I'm sitting in my driveway, got the heat blasting, gonna go up to 3,000 RPM like the manual says, and just try and hold it between 2,500 and 3,000. It's starting to blow hot, so we're getting coolant into the heater core. Yeah, it's getting really warm now. All right, let's go around the block. Under the hood, after the test drive, you can see how much the coolant level has gone down. Obviously, after the car cools down, it's going to soak up a lot more. You can check again the next day after it's fully cooled down. But you are done. So it's time to clean up everything. Take the used antifreeze to a recycling center. Usually any instant oil change place will take used antifreeze. Just call ahead of time and double check to make sure. And then, yeah, you're done. Good job. Wow, welcome back. It's the present time. Coolant's done. Yeah, so that was cool. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much. If you could please like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel, and every subscription helps. Right now, I don't really have a consistent upload schedule. I'm trying to do one video per month, so subscribe. The next video is probably going to be doing wheel bearings. So if your dart is starting to make weird noises above like 25-30 miles per hour, I'm going to be jumping into diagnosing and how to replace all the different wheel hubs. I'm not sure which one it is, so we'll just have to wait until that video comes out and see what happens. So thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.